Geothermal projects present opportunities in more than just electricity and heat production. Geothermal brines are often enriched with in-demand elements such as lithium, presenting a lucrative co-production play. Because geothermal energy is clean, it can be leveraged in times of decreased electricity demand to produce green hydrogen. And geothermal projects paired with subsurface engineering and direct air capture technologies may even provide an avenue for large-scale carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So, what types of projects are entities in this space pursuing currently in geothermal co-production? Where in the world are these opportunities? How can oil and gas entities find opportunity in co-production? Let's explore.
Good afternoon, good evening, and a very early good morning to those of you joining us from across the dateline. Welcome to this penultimate session of Pivot 2021 on geothermal co-production, lithium, hydrogen, and CCUS. My name is Edith Wilson, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Like our theme today, my business focuses on synergies between renewable energy, carbon reduction, and building sustainable energy mineral supply chains. So I'm as eager as you are to hear from our panelists about geothermal co-production and where the opportunities lie to integrate geothermal with other projects. How are new technologies and new business models providing synergistic solutions? At this point, I'd like to call on our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, starting with John Griffin.
Hello, my name is John Griffin, and I'm the CEO of Terraco. Happen to be a mechanical engineer with an MBA. And Terraco's technology is about creating a CCS site, and then we take a small percentage of that injected CO2, circulate it in a closed loop pipe to the surface, and spin a turbine to produce zero emissions, dispatchable baseload electricity. After the turbine, the CO2 goes right back into the reservoir to be reheated again. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, John. AY, you're up next.
Hi, Edith. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ahmad Yuniarto, but please call me AY. I'm an electrical engineer by trade with postgraduate studies in leadership and behavior. I have spent more than 25 years in energy sectors and currently the president director of Pertamina Geothermal Energy. We oversee 1.8 gigawatt of installed geothermal power, and out of that, 672 are directly operated by us, and 1.2 gigawatt are operated through joint operating agreement. Look forward to the discussion today.
Excellent. Thank you, AY. Sonia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Edith. I am Sonia Scarselli. I am the VP of Exploration and Appraisal at BHP. My background is in geology, and I'm very interested on how the week has been going, and there have been some amazing subjects and topics through the entire week. At BHP, we are a large resource company. We have a multi-commodity portfolio, and we are in the business of exploration and production of extraction of resources, and that's span from hydrocarbon to copper, nickel, iron ore, to name few, and we see a lot of synergies going forward with the geothermal industry.
Excellent. Thank you, Sonia. And finally, Rod.
Thank you, Edith. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be part of this panel with the esteemed colleagues here. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Control Thermal Resources. We're developing the Hell's Kitchen lithium power project in Southern California. It's a multi-stage program with the first 50 megawatts of power and 20,000 metric tons lithium hydroxide coming online in 2023, with growth potential of 1.1 gigawatts and 300,000 metric tons of lithium. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, all panelists. And it's wonderful to recognize such a diverse group of backgrounds and businesses. I'm sure it's going to make for a fascinating discussion as we share each other's stories. As we continue the conversation, I'd like to encourage participants as well as the panelists. Participants, please put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'm sure that there'll also be questions panelist to panelist that we'll be exchanging questions among ourselves as well. And in fact, I am going to pose the first of those questions. I know that as we are rapidly transforming our energy economy, we all recognize the growing importance of integration along the supply chain from mine to market, so to speak. So my first question is this: has co-production in your business enhanced your access to markets? And if so, how? And I'll give you a little bit of warning, the order in which I'm going to go. I'm going to ask Rod to take that question on first, and then I'm going to go to AY, John, and let Sonia have the last word. So Rod, has having co-production enhanced your access to market?
Absolutely. I think beyond just producing lithium products from brine, and in simple terms for the US market, it's removed, simply speaking, about 30 supply chain links just by doing that. Now, this product doesn't need to go offshore for post-processing. It can all happen here in Imperial Valley. I think beyond that, the opportunity with particularly the auto and utility market here is organic growth. So going from a battery grade product to cathode to battery to, organically is a big, massive opportunity. And I think the fellow panelists here, co-location of hydrogen and other types of opportunities, absolutely a wonderful, wonderful place in time we are.
Yeah. So AY, what are your thoughts on how having co-production of, in your case, hydrogen with geothermal enhances your access to market?
Thank you, Edith. I echo what Rod has elaborated. The answer is a definite yes. A geothermal exploration and productions traditionally has always been producing electricity in our countries. And when you produce electricity, then you have a single customers, which is the utility company. But when you go into what I call a multi-track development, then you opens up a whole new value chains with a different potential customers. When we are talking about hydrogen, and in this very aspect is a green hydrogens, then suddenly you have created like an ecosystem of potential green economy. You help potentially the effort in decarbonizations by providing opportunity for different sectors, as Rod says. Yeah, we could go into process industry, we could go into transportations, we could go into some other aspect of the future industries. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. John, has your market been enhanced by being able to capture carbon?
Definitely. And also, since we're producing electricity, we're finding there's significant efficiencies with our partners that are typically the emitters, where they want to look for continual ways to lower their carbon intensity. And that could be buying our electricity back, or it could be using our electricity to create products such as hydrogen. So yes, we think this is driving a lot of the interest from our customers in this area.
Great, thank you. And Sonia, I'm going to let you have a go at that question. And then I'm also going to tee up a question from our participants, which is, after you answer the market question, please describe how BHP's view of the synergies between mining and geothermal is evolving. Do you have any current projects in that realm? Could have written that question myself. So take it away, Sonia.
Thanks. Probably the first answer is connected with the second anyway. I would say that we see synergies and especially on the circularity of the economy and the co-production, where geothermal can play a very important role as an independent pillar as part of the organization, as part of BHP, but also can be providing energy and heat to our own facilities and our own operations, with the intent and the focus on that case to decarbonizing our operation and reducing our CO2 emission across our portfolio. So there is definitely there a huge synergy just from a business point of view. And then the other aspect that follow up the second question a little bit is on the synergy around the commodity. I think about geothermal as a commodity, as a resource, as a underground, a subsurface resource. And when we think about our business, it's really to explore and produce the subsurface resources, and all the activities that we are carrying on can be easily applied to the geothermal, whether it is the geological characterization of the subsurface and understanding of the heat space, to the drilling and completion, to the operation, to the building of facilities. All of those aspects that we apply in other parts of our business, whether it is oil and gas or mining, we can certainly exploit into geothermal.
Yeah. I'm curious, the question also asked if you have any current projects in the mining area that use geothermal. And I know we were all fascinated to read about your nickel alliance with an OEM. And so do you anticipate geothermal being used in those sorts of projects?
So we have been on the process on investing on a couple of geothermal companies. I cannot disclose the names today. However, we are moving into that space and expanding our portfolio. And the intent is to start to build those collaboration and test how we can apply into our own operations and activities.
Great. Wonderful. Well, we have some fantastic questions from our audience. So I'm going to get right to the next one, which is for John. And John, we'd like to know if you could discuss how you're engineering your CO2 reservoir and what the challenges are that are associated with this. Is the geothermal output alone enough to build your business on?
It is not, but it supports that business. The challenges around sequestration to date are, number one, it's relatively new, and the permitting folks are getting used to that. And I think part of that is the interval to get those permits is a little longer than we'd like to expect long term. But we fully expect as the market develops, the regulators will be more comfortable with this. This is a safe, secure method. And they're looking for sequestration to be in deep saline aquifers. And they're pervasive around the United States and of course offshore. And so I think that's really a good solution for taking CO2, putting it in the ground to be safe and secure over time, and lowering the emission profile of a lot of these industrial companies.
Okay. And can you speak a little bit to challenges associated with engineering the reservoir?
You know, I think it's, again, I see us putting proven technologies together in a novel arrangement. So we're not creating world peace or anything on this. It's really patching them together. And again, I think the big challenge at this stage is the newness of the technology, getting the permitting folks up to speed. And there's some pore space issues about who owns those underground rights for sequestration. But we're seeing a lot of the states really getting aggressive in dealing with that in an upfront manner. So we're very optimistic of how this is proceeding.
Okay, great. We have a sort of a general question for all the panelists. Again, another big news story that we've all been following with pleasure in the past weeks. The Controlled Thermal Resources GM deal from mine to market, integrated through the OEM. And I'm wondering if you can all comment on how you view the future of those big partnerships in the coming years. Where are the opportunities to do more of those sorts of deals? And we'll start with the deal maker himself, Mr. Caldwell.
Thanks, Edith. Look, we've seen the shift going from third-party battery off-takers and those discussions, predominantly South Korea and China, really change in the last, say, 18 months, where big auto themselves are looking for a surety of supply. I think we're all sort of getting the picture that there's going to be an inflection point, probably around mid, 24 to maybe 25. But the compound growth rate of EVs, you pick up a newspaper every day, it's beyond what the forecasts are well ahead of. So, like I said at the start, I think a surety of supply, their sustainability credentials, not so much in the US government-led, but more so their own corporate, diligence. So, Mary Barra's statements about going 100% green at 2035, the state of California also with carbon neutrality 2045 and EVs at 100% at 2035 is really pushed the market from the retail end, which is not typical of that industry, but I really think it's just a security forecast. And again, we've, without going into details, but we're looking like power purchase agreements. We have long-term contracts, not, we're not playing a spot market here with this.
Right, because that's baked into those supply chains, to those manufacturing chains. Yeah. So AY, how about on the hydrogen side? Do you see opportunities for big deals with hydrogen co-production and geothermal? And we also have a member of our audience who would like to know if there is currently a sufficient hydrogen market.
Thank you, Edith. If we are talking about today, definitely, the size of the market might not be justifying the investments to start co-producing in a bigger scale. However, what we are doing is actually exploring and investing for the future. And we will see, or we anticipate an interesting inflections around 2030 in hydrogen market, and especially in green hydrogen market. I think the opportunity here for a company like us is getting ourselves ready. And also what is important is start being part of building the whole value chains, including, growing also the potential of taker or potential market. I tend to agree with Rod that if we're going to go into this is not retail business. This is actually, it has to be, institutional or a long-term with a sizable, stable off-taking.
Okay.
And
just a couple of follow-ups for you, AY. Are there currently any operating geothermal and hydrogen co-production facilities?
We are currently operating directly 672 megawatts of geothermal power. We are in the middle of preparing our pilot project for co-productions. And what we do is actually try to create the market. So we start by creating a green ecosystem within the bigger group in our company, in Pertamina. So we create internal demand, and we try to supply those internal demand. And that could be the example for a wider industry. And then, learning from that experiments and then upscaling it.
Yep.
Because for geothermal, to be able to do a multi-track development, to be able to do a co-production is really one of the critical success factor is looking into the best strategy in the development and the production of the geothermal resources. Right. Are you going to steam? Are you going into binary? What is the percentage of powers and the technologies that you allocated for each of those track of productions, for example? It is very, very exciting explorations and study that we have to do.
Yeah, and I have one final follow-up and then we'll move on to John with the big question. But AY, can you comment any more on the technology you'll be using for hydrogen co-production, or is that too far in the future?
No, I think we can share. We can say here that at the moment we are currently both exploring the PM and also the alkalines. But it's the challenges is not only on the choice of the technologies. but how you actually achieve, the full cycle efficiencies from a power generation and the start of electrolyzers, as well as thinking about the transportation or perhaps storage, and how you can also increase the utilization of the geothermal power in the storage part of the hydrogen too, because the more you can do, what we believe is that, the more you can increase the efficiency of the whole system, and that helps the economic of the green hydrogen co-productions from geothermal resources.
Great. Thank you so much, AY, for that deeper dive. That's really, really interesting to hear. John, your thoughts on the initial question of where do you see the opportunities in these big, fully integrated projects coming with co-production of geothermal and CCUS?
Well, for us, again, our value equation is kind of twofold. We if they're not completely green at this stage, we can handle the emissions, secure them to lower their CI. And again, we're getting interest from those same parties to consume green energy as part of their process, whether that's in fuels, hydrogen, or whatever. And we just continue to, every site is a twofold solution: lower my emissions and then make my product more green in the marketplace.
Yeah. And can you comment at all on direct air capture and its place in these bigger deals?
I have not, I know the direct air capture folks. I've had some initial dialogue with some of them in the past. We're not running into them so far as to where we are. Now, obviously, direct air capture uses a lot of energy, and they would benefit from green energy in their process, but we're not running into them directly at this point.
Okay. Sonia, the final word on these big integrated deals from your perspective at BHP. How do you see this happening, particularly integrating with mining and oil and gas, which are the two legs upon which BHP stands?
There are two aspects of the integration. The first element, it's really around providing that power and it within our own facility operation to decarbonize our own operations. That's for us is certainly an area of greater interest, both in the hydrocarbon sector as well as on the mining sector. But on the other hand, the other big piece of integration is around being one of the pillar of one of our assets as part of the portfolio, where we can actually become part of the not only the renewable, but also part of the power sector as an industry. And then the area that we are starting to look into is the relation and the potential synergies with the hydrogen as well and the CCUS. I would say still a little bit immature from our point of view, and where we are with the evaluation of we are starting to look into that as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned we have another question regarding, you mentioned some upcoming deals with geothermal companies, and just curious from the perspective of an existing major multinational corporation, is there a benefit to partnering with small strategic startups or with larger firms, or how do you wrap smaller, more entrepreneurial startups into the bigger picture?
So I think I look at this as a portfolio. So when we partner with the smaller independent and startup, looking at a portfolio of opportunities, and each of these startups, they are testing interesting aspect of the technologies related to geothermal and different methodologies, or they are solving different problems with their activities. So for us, it allows to be part of it, to provide input where is asked, where we have the capabilities and we can help. Certainly we can provide that, but also we can in a very quick, agile, fit for purpose way test and understand the technology in a much more fast way if we would have done internally. Then the question is how you bring that back internally, that learning, and what is the upscaling. That is one of the things that definitely, with the big corporation hat on my head, is how can we upscale the technology, or how can we upscale that type of resource across the entire globe.
Okay, and just a quick follow-on question popped up from a member of our audience. As you talk about decarbonizing mining, we think a lot about diesel use and trucking in mining operations. Do you see a role for geothermal for electric generation of vehicles or something? I mean, would that be a way of using geothermal to decarbonize?
Yeah, absolutely. In our mines, we need the two main components to run the mines. One is the electricity or fuel for the electric vehicle, for the big trucks and the big operating vehicles. The other piece is the heat. So we do need the heat to run the processes within the mines. So geothermal can offer both of it at the same time. So that's definitely a big plus.
Great, great. Okay, so I have a question that I would like to throw open to all four of you to sort of bandy about amongst each other. A couple of you had mentioned in earlier conversations wanting to sort of investigate with your fellow panelists where there might be opportunities to integrate, say, hydrogen into your project, Rod, or carbon capture into your project, AY. What do you see in hearing what each other has to offer about opportunities for additional integration of new products? Who would like to start?
I guess I can
Excellent.
kick off. Okay. Look, I think there's a tremendous opportunity to synergize, I guess, in the spirit of the panel. So green hydrogen for us absolutely is on the table. So if you think about our location out here, we're on the basin of the Salton Sea that's been receding. It's a bit of a mess out here. So co-locating industry here, which we have access to, green steam energy and also industrial water, is a big issue. So hydrogen and ammonia, and beyond that, ag products like other minerals we haven't spoken about, zinc, manganese, and others that we actually have to take out to get to lithium anyway. So there's a great opportunity to get into the ag products, the hydrogen, the ammonia side, transportable fuels, but also organically look at this. I mean, potassium, we can produce 1 million tons per 20,000 tons of lithium. It's enormous, and we're in the middle of an agricultural area where all potassium is imported into the United States. So I think synergies like that, other synergies, I mean, carbon sequestration, to make lithium carbonate, well, we would utilize the CO2 in the brine stream to carbonate that lithium. That's one way of sort of taking something that's green anyway in the first place to another level. Molten salt, with being able to provide flexible baseload is a big issue, I mean, particularly in California. So we're in those discussions, even co-location of solar and bioalgae of all things. I mean, there's some great opportunities that we'd love to, if we had the resources and time to really, focus on. I think it's a very, very synergistic opportunity.
Yeah. So John, you were the other one who thought this would be a fun topic of discussion among your fellow panelists. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm surprised and somewhat taken aback by when we start a project, we often it's often through the state, and they introduce us to other organizations they deal with. And I'm finding markets opportunities, even obviously for some of our waste products, which is mainly brine. And typically you're looking at salt, but we're finding folks that are coming in with very creative solutions to use that. We don't have lithium we don't anticipate lithium in our brine waste, but we're finding more and more companies looking for that as a low cost source material to generate other products.
Excellent. So, AY, I'm going to call on you now and ask you an additional question that has come in through the audience about the hydrogen side, but I think it might be applicable to other integrated elements of projects as well. And this is one that's near and dear to our hearts, those of us who are former petroleum geologists. We all recognize that these big projects, particularly for things like hydrogen, require transportation systems, gathering, transmission, distribution, pipelines. What are your thoughts? And I'll ask other panelists to comment on this as well, if they have them, on how the sort of midstream is going to need to be developed for the hydrogen co-production with geothermal.
Thank you. I think in relation with your first questions, the theme is collaboration and partnerships. This is an exciting space to explore. Definitely in terms of the midstream, then what we see is that we might not be the right party to develop the midstream part of it by ourselves, because it might require a different capabilities. And perhaps you can look into an existing expert in transportations, high volume specialized transportations for gases or for hydrogens. Currently there are already transporters and midstream players for hydrogens. It's just a matter of switching it into a green hydrogen. I think these are the space that we can work together in perhaps even enhancing the transportation system, including perhaps a storage. But we're also investigating the ability to actually reduce the transportation requirement by co-locating the hydrogen plant actually in the complex or within the same location as the end users. And then basically what you need to transport is actually the electrons, the
right.
Geothermal electrons, right? So that is also an exciting element that we are investigating. And talking about potential synergy and collaborations, of course, at the moment, we are also looking into ways of extracting minerals from geothermal productions. And this is in the spirit of actually creating more values out of geothermal resources. John talking about the waste is brine. We are not looking into brine as a waste. We are looking into brine as another treasure, right? That we have to create more value out of it. So I think really going forward, I mean, these are the space that is very, very exciting for collaboration. We definitely need to grow that ecosystem of innovations. Mm-hmm. We cannot rely on just an internal source of innovations. We have to tap into the external source. And essentially, what I always believe as well is that we have to work this ecosystem so as we get the benefit out of the collective intelligence of that ecosystem.
Excellent. I love that. The collective intelligence of the ecosystem. I'm going to remember that one. So Sonia, I'm going to let you have the last word on this concept, but with a little bit of a twist in the same way that AY brought in a slightly different angle. We have a question that wants to know if BHP is thinking about converting any existing mines, particularly mines approaching closure, to direct geothermal heat producers. Do you see a synergistic element there?
That's a very interesting thought and suggestion. We haven't looked into that, but maybe something we can certainly evaluate. I would say a lot of our mines are quite a long life ahead of them, so we don't really have anything that is to closure anytime soon. But I mean, that's something we can certainly consider.
Yeah, we know we've seen coal mines, for example, being converted to direct geothermal use. So yeah, excellent. So I'd like to just toss another idea out as well that reflects some of the questions that are coming in. If we cast opportunities in a slightly different light and talk more about personal opportunities, we've had a lot of specific questions about what are the real technical challenges that you face in lithium brine extraction, for example, Rod, or in reservoir evaluation, John, or midstream AY, or mining decarbonization, Sonia. But where are the opportunities for our energy professionals in this future of the big integrated co-production geothermal project? Where do you see the opportunities for us to transfer our skills to this new energy economy? Who would like to be first? John, shall I pick on you?
I appreciate it. I think there's a lot of opportunities, and really what it gets down to is the team you have on your group that you're working with. If you have diverse people with diverse experiences, and the environment's one of open collaboration, the whole group gets energized by the opportunities that maybe one person doesn't see, and then he or she can articulate those to everybody. The one that comes to mind for us, and to be frank, we still kind of struggle with it, is energy storage. Our equipment's dispatchable because we're not using, any scale. We're using CO2 as the working fluid. And so we can turn it on and off quickly. And we've explored in the past energy storage, and we're probably a little early there. I'm struggling to figure out how to quantify that, but we're keeping our eyes on that space, and where we could take renewables, use them to inject the CO2, and then deliver an on-demand electricity stream when required.
So Rod, how about you? Where do you see the real technical challenges in extracting that lithium from the brine, and how can we find opportunities for our energy professionals in your projects?
Yeah, I think the technical solutions in piecemeal are there, and I'm not the technical guy to talk about this, but I think that firstly, big oil has a lot to bring to this industry. I just to give you a story, we had everyone at the Western here in Palm Springs recently, all our contractors, to figure out how we deliver 310 megawatts and a 100,000 ton per year lithium hydroxide facility by mid 2024. That caused some concern in the room. That's big. That hasn't been done maybe in that scale before, but nevertheless, it is a very, very small in comparison to petrochemicals when you fly over Houston or something like that, and looking out the window. So it can be done. I think the opportunity really is for the engineers and others in the petrochemical big oil industry to come across to this industry. We're going from metallurgy, hydrometallurgists that we've employed ourselves, but really looking at that. Now, the technical challenges to all brines, or particularly this brine, is silica. It's the devil in the brine. So our approach, we're a mine first with thermal power second, if you think about it that way. So if you have problematic minerals, we remove them all. And we've actually got an offtake agreement for our silica, manganese and zinc that are the problematic upstream minerals to be able to get to our ion exchange, which has been around for 60 years, and then to an electrolysis unit, which we end up using 30% of our load organically. So it's just the way it's arranged, I think, but using proven known technologies. We're not a technology company, we're a resource company, but to follow strict mining instruments such as NI 43-101 and others, to follow a guideline as such. So the opportunity, again, I think, is how far down the rabbit hole we go with this raw materials to cathode, to battery, to, who knows where it's going to take us. So there's a really massive opportunity, I think, for big oil and those folks to come across to developments like our panelists here, and I think I'm sure we'd welcome them with open arms.
Yeah, that chemical processing facility and expertise is hugely transferable. I think that's fascinating. So Sonia, how about you? What do you see as the personal opportunity for growth for industry professionals as we move toward these co-production projects?
I think it started really from the beginning, from the rocks, and having a very efficient way to understand where we can do geothermal globally. So the areas that we see in projects are very specific. I would like to understand where else can we do geothermal? So what are the conditions that need to be out there from a subsurface point of view that we can do geothermal everywhere else? So it becomes a true baseload type of energy that we can apply everywhere. So that's one thing, but doing it efficiently. And I think in the past few years on the oil and gas industry, we've been much better on leveraging the new technologies, whether it's AI or machine learning, to really integrate a large amount of data set, investigate data very quickly, becoming more efficient in times and costs. I think that can definitely be exported into the geothermal side. The other piece is the drilling, the completion. I mean, we have an entire arm of geoscientists and drillers and engineers that they understand rocks, they understand how to perform, how to drill different conditions, different pressure, temperature, and so on. We can definitely move all of that capabilities across and become more efficient and reducing further the cost, because ultimately we want to maintain those costs very low.
Yeah, and Sonia, before I hand the mic to AY, we continue to have folks who want you to squeeze the last drop of value from your assets at BHP, and we have another question about decommissioning on end-of-life petroleum assets. Do you see an opportunity for geothermal value add there?
So that's certainly one out of interest, and that was the first step into the geothermal, how we could apply it to our assets and fields. So we are looking into that.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's so many opportunities. It's almost a kid in a candy store sort of situation, isn't it? So AY, I know that this is an area that you have some very strong thoughts on. What are your thoughts on the opportunities for us as energy professionals in the co-production geothermal space?
Edith, this is really a space for growth. You know, we are at the early stage here with the geothermal co-productions, for example, and we also having a wide spectrum of explorations. John, we are looking also, you know, how can we create values in the value chain of CCUS from our geothermal resource base. You know, Rod, you're talking about silica as the devil, as a problem. You know, we try to zoom in and very specifically try to extract nanosilica and try to create value out of it, right? So it is really a growth area, and hence for the energy professionals, what I would say is if we all approach it as a learner, then you know it is there. We have to think about the portable skill, but this is not just portability as is, but it is actually porting and then growing. If we picture a letter T as representations of professionals, you know, the leg is the specializations, and the wing is actually the non-technical or universal capabilities like adaptability, cultural intelligence, and what have you. We need more and more professional with a T profile, and not only T profile. When we are looking into expanding what we call in Pertamina geothermal energy beyond energy, you know, we are in a geothermal exploration and productions, but we also exploring CCUS application. We are exploring into green hydrogen productions. We are exploring into mineral extractions. This is a space to actually grow more legs. So we are looking forward to take energy professional, young energy professionals into the growth journey of becoming a multi-like T professionals.
I love that. I love that. Fascinating and really, really nice to hear. Okay, I have we're you know, sort of 2/3 of the way through our discussion and chat here. So I have a few lightning round questions. So, you know, 30 seconds or less, if you can give a quick answer to these. And the first is just for the so-called smaller companies in the group. So I think Rod and John, that means you. That question is, Are you funded through venture capital currently, and will you require additional funding to get to revenue positive? Rod, 30 seconds or less.
We're a private organisation and self-funding, previously from an annuity-style background in Australia. So I guess our goal will be more traditional, more so, institutional institutional equity and debt, say the ATVM loan, the part of the Department of Energy, those types of opportunities that come with the Green New Deal is probably the path that we're on at the moment.
Great. John?
We've been very fortunate. The Department of Energy has been a great partner of ours, and they've continued to support our research efforts, both on geothermal and in CCUS. But as we're out scaling into implementation, what's going to carry the day, frankly, is the business case for the project. And we're feeling real good about that. And we think the IRRs we're seeing out of that are sufficient to draw money into the project. And we would draw a revenue stream on those large projects for the consulting and the licensing potentially.
Got it.
And so we're feeling we got to expand, but we're in good shape there.
Great. Okay, so the next lightning round question. Sonia, I'll let you start with this one. Is carbon pricing a necessary element for a CCUS co-production play?
Well, I think that's something, yes, it's something that we need to have. And now then the question is how the carbon pricing would look like. It would be global regulatory forms. They would be different from country to country. I mean, that needs to be aligned. So that is important for when every project have to be competitive on a portfolio. So when we are running our economics, that needs to be part of it.
AY, your thoughts on carbon pricing to make co-production successful?
I think overall carbon pricing and carbon economy is an important part of our future enterprises. When we are looking into it as well, we are thinking of how to increase our value propositions. That our value in future carbon economy is not only from just the generation of green electricity, but it is in the integrated package. Because when you're actually working with the geothermal resources, you also work with preservations of the forest just because of the geographical locations of the resources. You also work on a sustainable community development because you are there and you just have to work with your community. And if we add other activities that look into a green circular economy, through that co-productions, I think we can increase that value propositions. And how the carbon economy pricing is going to shape up in the future, I think we have to be part of that equations. At the early stage through clean development mechanisms or gold standards, for example, it is still a bit compartmentalized, right? That you have a value out of your green electricity power plant, for example, but it's standalone. It is yet to be valued as an integrated package, and I think that will be an interesting part where we can increase the value propositions that we have into growing the green economy in the future. Yep. What we like to use the term is actually what we do as a leading geothermal company in Indonesia. We have the aspirations to be a global integrated green energy company. Why? Because through that, we can increase the green economic multipliers for our country and also for the world.
Thank you, AY. Rod, your quick thoughts on carbon pricing, is that necessary?
Absolutely. I think it'd be great to have a level playing field. I mean, California got the RECs, of course, with energy, so that's in place. But on lithium, for example, hard rock, spodumene, it consumes about 14.8 kilograms per kilogram of lithium produced. The salars are about 7.4 kilograms of CO2 produced to produce 1 kilogram, and we're 0.6. So it's testament, I guess, not that there's a measure yet, but certainly General Motors' announcement was a big driver. Sustainable sourcing is coming in there. We'd love to see some sort of level playing field for that, and I believe it's been discussed. To AY's point, I think there absolutely should be something to level the bar across the board.
Yep. So appropriately, John, you get the last word on carbon pricing.
Appreciate that. I think early in the stages of many of these projects, some sort of incentive is in place. And really, when you look at the United States specifically, which I'm most familiar with, you're seeing that with the 45Q legislation around sequestration. And then the second thing, even with the typical electric power in the States, geothermal, one of them, there's wind and solar all have subsidies. And I think until they get to scale, and that's just a way to jumpstart the market. But I think long term, as these markets develop, there's going to be normalization of that.
Excellent. I love the varied perspectives, and all coming back to a similar thought process. So we're coming up on our last question, and I'm going to combine two from the audience and ask that you each limit your answer to about a minute, if you could. And this is the granddaddy of them all. As an oil and gas geologist, I was always asked, what will the price of oil be in 5 to 10 years? And the question to you all is, what is the opportunity for growth? What's the size of the growth in this space in the view of each of our panelists over the next 5 to 10 years? And we also have some questions that haven't been answered from the audience about, are there any particular places across the globe that you see as being ripe for co-production growth? So if you could, in a minute or less, please answer that growth question. What's the size of the pie, and how much will it grow over the next 5 to 10 years? Sonia, would you like to start that one off?
It's hard to define what's the size of the growth. I think there have to be elements that are happening in the next 4 to 5 years to make this continue to be a compelling case for growth. Part is on the consistency and standardization and regulatory. That would definitely allow to see more investment and see more growth on the business. And partly some of the technologies that have been tested that we're monitoring. If those are working, then definitely once that the risking on the R&D side is done, then you can definitely start to see more and more of the project, whether it's the drilling at a high temperature, whether it's continued testing some of the AGS and EGS. So some of these needs to be done, and that probably is, I would say, the signpost to watch and monitor to really get a better understanding where the growth is going to go. On my mind, it's a little bit early to say more than that.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. John, your thoughts on growth, please. What's the size of the pie going to be 10 years from now?
A lot bigger than it is today. I'm confident of that.
Good answer.
And but no, seriously, I just think that everybody's getting behind this. General consensus is moving forward that we need to decarbonize. Governments are lining up, and the industry is lining up. And frankly, the changes in the last 2 years, I've been with Terraco about 6 years, are just exponential changes. And I think that alignment of our thoughts across multiple sectors, both industry and the government, is just going to drive substantial growth over the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and the fact that it is coming fastest and faster from these integrated co-production projects, I think is just indicative of how important they are to meeting the needs of these sustainable supply chains. AY, your thoughts on growth? How big will we get in 10 years?
If we are talking about hydrogen, I think we have yet to have a consensus actually in a future market, but definitely higher. If you're talking about 2030, perhaps globally there will be a growth of a demand between 100 to 150 million tons per year, and beyond 2030, definitely then the view is more diverse. But I think we are hinging on one critical factor here is affirmative decarbonization policies. I think that on itself will drive the growth from the demand side, and also that growth in demand side will motivate the research, the technology developments that will bring overall efficiency for the whole value chains.
Great. Rod, the last word on growth. What do you see as happening with these big OEM-driven projects? How big will they get?
I think one of the best measures is the gigafactory is actually under construction. That's a really good measure. And so actually being built or to be completed, and we're seeing a growth factor off the charts. I mean, 2028 at 2.2 million metric tons per year of LCE. At the moment, the whole globe produces 380,000 tons. So, you know, it's accelerating really, really quickly. And to be honest, you know, we can produce 300,000 metric tons per year fully developed, but that's our 10-year vision to answer that one. And similarly for power, you know, we've got a 56 gigawatt system here in California. The renewables have been great to add to the portfolio, but you've got Diablo Canyon, the last nuclear facility, going down in 2024, and that's 2.3 gigawatts of baseload power. So the shortage of baseload and the offset is super critical. You know, we're having blackouts here at the moment. So the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, put a mandate out a few weeks ago for 1,000 megawatts of new built geothermal. Just remember, these are 10-year projects to be delivered before 2026. So, you know, we've got to get our act together and start drilling and getting pipe out there and doing all those sorts of things, because we won't keep up. So yeah, it's enormous. And speaking on behalf of the other, you know, Berkshire Hathaway and Energy Source, great, our friends here in Salton Sea, similar scale projects, we still won't be able to meet the demand curve, unfortunately.
Yeah. So the question is not what the size of the growth will be, but how can we get there faster, bigger, faster, better? Yeah. So unfortunately, panelists, the time has come for that last word. So I'm going to ask each of you to leave us with one sentence that sort of summarizes your thoughts on this phenomenal opportunity in geothermal co-production that we've been talking over for the last hour. Let me start with Sonia. Your last word, please.
So my last word is really around the opportunity and the synergies with both with the oil and gas and the mining side, both in terms of developing the geothermal as a part, another pillar of the portfolio, and the other aspect is around becoming our energy supply for our own facility. So first is the business synergy, but the other piece is really around the capabilities and the skills that we have in our organization that can definitely be moved across into the geothermal space.
Thank you. John, your last word.
I'd like to give you a little analysis from our experience. So my CTO is a long-term oil and gas executive, and we continue to hire more and more people from the gas and oil industry as helpers to get our direction set. And they're great employees. And I think that kind of growth is indicative of the transitions that both the people and the industries trying to make in this new space.
Thank you. Rod.
Yeah, much the same as Sonia and John's comments. I mean, the white oil, if you like, revolution's happening, and the more we bring big oil and petrochemicals across, the quicker we can, because our biggest issue is not can we do it, it's a scale up. We need to treat the scale up seriously as we would a large petrochemical facility. So I think it can be done, but we need the real horsepower and knowledge, and you know, the cranes and the concrete and everything else that gets these things going right now.
Excellent. AY, you have the last word of the last words.
I think it is about building a dynamic capability for our organizations and for everyone as well. And it is a future-oriented. Dynamic capability means that we have a business that we have been doing, and we're going to grow in terms of a geothermal capacity. We're going to double our capacity in the next 10 years. But at the same time, we have to explore the unknown. We have to explore the new things. We have to put ourselves in discomfort. Why? Because that is for the future. And then along the line, some of these exploratory projects might drop off, but we do believe that some is going to get traction through partnerships and collaboration, and it's going to be a new mainstream in the near future. And that's what we have to do.
Excellent. Thank you all for those parting words and for a great session. And thank you, Jamie, and all the organizers of Pivot for creating the space for this conversation. And with that, I'll wish you all a good evening, a good afternoon, a good morning, and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith, for all your help.
Thank you, Edith.
Thank you.